Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of MMA Oddsbreakers Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown Show, brought to you by BetDSI as well as our good friends at MMA Oddsbreaker. We are here for UFC Vegas 53, where we have Rob Font taking on Marlon Vera. And one of the themes of this card is going to be the tough get going when the going gets tough. And we are going to get right into it with the first fight of the night, where we have flyweights coming in. Tatsuro Taira, a specialist out of Japan who is known for his submissions, his back-taking ability, taking on Candelario, who was the last fighter to weigh in, plus 195 at the betting window for Candelario. Now, this line has closed a little bit. We have yet to see Taira extended in fights. He's going to look to gain a dominant position early, and then we'll see what he can do with it. Only 22 years of age, so this is a ripe young prospect here who I believe the UFC are giving they're giving themselves a chance here with Candelario, who has shown that he is brittle in some regards, and his last time out, that split decision loss, didn't necessarily show me much. Now, I'll be picking Taira here. I think that he's going to be able to find the back, and that weight cut may come in and cost Candelario, who I don't trust him, man. I don't trust him. So I'm going to be picking Taira, and the inside the distance line is something to take a look at. I see that this fight isn't expected to go to a decision at minus 130. And you look at Taira's previous matchups, he's going to try to lock something up quick. And if he gets extended, we might see his whole game fall apart. And that's where Candelario could take over. But I believe Taira's going to get this done. Second fight of the night, where we have, can you believe this is happening? 7-5, 7-4 overall records. Gina Mazany minus 190, taking on Mazany-Young, who is coming in at plus 150. Both of these fighters extremely low level women's fighters who you look at Mazany, clear grappling path here if she wants to go that route. Physicality should overwhelm Young, but we've seen Mazany's game fall apart down the stretch. Cachoeira. Now, Young doesn't necessarily pose a significant power threat, but there is extreme volatility in women's MMA. I was tweeting this out earlier in the week that can't trust the low-level women's MMA fighters here. And Mazany, I'm not going to go out of my way to put money on her, but I will be picking her to win. I just can't trust Gina Mazany at this stage in her career, even though she's facing a fighter who doesn't pose much of a threat. But when the wheels start to fall off, things get sketchy quick, and that could potentially happen here if Mazany is unable to get the finish. And this one's expected to go to a decision. So give me Gina Mazany, but not much conviction in that play. Next up, where we have Natan-Levy, who's looking to right a wrong after taking a decision loss to Rafa Garcia. Natan-Levy minus 195 at the betting window, taking on Mike Breeden, who, let's be honest, against Alexander Hernandez, we did not see the best Mike Breeden. Breeden's known for his knockout power and his grappling ability, looking to try to take Levy down. And what can he do with that, though? Levy, known as a striker, fighting out of Syndicate, but he has submission victories on his resume. And one thing about Levy is he makes his strikes count. He is very efficient when he's out there, going to look to land at range in the smaller octagon. We should see the action forced here. Breeden is going to try his best to land a knockout blow on the feet, and I don't think it's going to happen here. I'll be picking Levy to get his first UFC victory and do it in spectacular fashion. So give me Natan Levy in that matchup. Next up, we have Johan Lainesse, Lainesse coming in as a plus 100 underdog Canadian fighter who watched that Contender Series bout and go to the end of the fight. You'll hear Johan, his screams, his primal roars at the end of the fight. Give me that contract. Now, he's taking on a fighter in Gabe Green who has a tendency to not go away. You watch Gabe Green in his previous UFC fights, and he can take some big damage. The question is, Johan can land heavy strikes here, and he's going to look to counter strike. He's going to, it does not look pretty when he's out there fighting Johan. And in this spot, Gabe Green is going to have to overcome some serious adversity. And can he do that inside of the smaller octagon? That is the question here. Johan has the heavy power. He doesn't look like he has a gas tank to be that efficient and economical. He's going to have Gabe Green coming at him, looking to push a pace. And I'm going to be picking Gabe Green here, but you look up and down Gabe Green's resume, and he was put out by Jalen Turner and other fighters on the regional scene. So I have some questions about Gabe Green when he's fighting a fighter of this level as far as power goes. Johan could surprise some folks here, and we might hear that primal roar at the end of the bout, especially in the apex when there is no crowd. The thud of the unconscious body hitting the canvas could potentially come into play here, but I'll be picking Gabe Green. This fight isn't expected to go to a decision. I think that Johan could get the KO, but Gabe Green has the better gas tank here, and I'll be picking Gabe Green in that specific matchup. Next up, where we head to flyweights again, and we have Deiveson Figueiredo's sibling here, his younger sibling, who, believe it or not, started his career. I believe he started his career earlier than Deiveson Figueiredo. Daniel Da Silva is his opponent. Daniel Da Silva is fighting out of the same camp that Alex Oliveira fights out of. Daniel Da Silva is a quick starter. He will empty his tank early in the first round in many of his fights and goes for the kill. I didn't like what I saw as far as the weigh-ins go. Both of these guys were very friendly towards one another, taking selfies together. I hope that does not translate into a fight where they're not going for the kill. But everything I've seen out of Daniel Da Silva lends itself to believing that he is going to try to end this fight as he's done in all of his previous matchups and do so early. Francisco Figueiredo is a poor man's version of his brother, fights in a very similar fighting style, doesn't throw for volume, is going to load up and try to make his strikes count. Now, Daniel Da Silva does have a submission game. Watch out for that head kick. And the longer this fight goes, then Figueiredo may come to life. The loss to Malcolm Gordon, you watch that back, and Malcolm Gordon, to be honest, he's one of the worst flyweights on the entire roster. I was hoping that we'd get, just for our own peace of mind, Deiveson Figueiredo against Malcolm Gordon, just as a little appetizer. But that isn't happening. And we have Daniel Da Silva here. I'll be picking Daniel Da Silva to win, and win so inside the distance. This fight doesn't go the distance line was minus 105 at one point. Now it's starting to trend outward here. Minus 140 is what we're seeing locally. And I'll be picking the fight doesn't go the distance and also Daniel Da Silva to win. Let's take a look at the comments here. Sergio, good morning. Great to see you. Marcus, good morning. Let's see what else we got here. Do you think Green inside the distance? I don't think that fight's going to a decision, but we'll see. We'll see. Matthew, good morning. We'll get into the main event in a few minutes. You talk about fighters who get going when the going gets tough. That is our main event. But let's continue this journey together where we have heavyweights. We have a fight that didn't necessarily need to be rebooked. This reminds me of the Ankalaev-Kudalaba fight that was booked a number of times, but we didn't need to see it. Do we really need to see Alexander Romanov versus Chase Sherman? Look at those odds. Minus 2,200 for Alexander Romanov, and Chase Sherman can be had for plus 1,000. Romanov should come in here and beat the hell out of Chase Sherman. Let's be honest. He should ground him and pound him. And it's just a matter of, is he going to lock up a submission, or is he going to brutalize him with ground and pound? Could go either way. I don't like the inside the distance lines. Fight doesn't go the distance. It's minus 800. How are we supposed to play that? Those are bankroll destroyers if they don't hit. So you do not want to go out of your way to play that, and it's also dangerous to parlay some of this stuff. So I'll be picking Romanov to win, and I mean Chase Sherman could come out here and shock the world. That there are no certainties in this game, as we well know, but Romanov is I like the way how he's taking care of himself too. Came in at 236, I believe, on the scales today. Very impressive. And I'll be picking him to win inside the distance. Now, who does Romanov get after this matchup? That's what I want to know. He's going to have to fight some legitimate heavyweights. And then Sherman, are you kidding me? He's got, what, a 4-fight deal after this? Did he just sign a new contract? So where does Chase Sherman go? They're going to have to feed him to somebody too. So give me Romanov to win. And now as far as DraftKings goes, my heart goes out to everybody who rostered Romanov in his in that last week debacle, that matchup that never came to fruition. And also Sherman is now able to compete after 1 week of he didn't clear his medicals. Very interesting stuff. So next up, we've got Gerald Meerschaert taking on Krzysztof Jotko. Jotko coming in as a minus 175 betting favorite. Meerschaert is riding a win streak here, is a jiu-jitsu practitioner who puts himself in some bad positions, but has a tendency to overcome adversity. Jotko is a somewhat brittle fighter. When you watch I know he has the Cirkunov win, but there have been other cases where he's melted down the stretch and he hasn't shown the durability that you'd like to see. Jotko is a fighter who has a great gas tank, who likes to fight at range and pour volume on, has a good get-up game, not much of a submission threat. I don't see him locking up a submission against Meerschaert here. Meerschaert has the tendency and could potentially put Jotko in a bad spot. I picked Jotko to beat Cirkunov after Cirkunov made that drop down to 185, and this is a tough fight to call here. I slightly lean Jotko because I think that he has the tools to win this fight, and he has the game plan, and he has a lot of advantages here, but I don't like that he's been hurt in many spots and that he's coming off of a situation where the past few fights he just doesn't look himself to me. And the way he fights, he's not as aggressive. I'm a bit hesitant to pick Jotko. I will, but this is a spot where I think Meerschaert is a live opponent here, and it would not shock me, especially in DraftKings. I think that Meerschaert's a good play in DraftKings, that he is his probability to win, the odds seem a little off here. I wouldn't go out of my way to play Jotko at minus 175, but give me Jotko to win. Now, wow. Oh man, I'm looking forward to this fight. Let's see. Hang on. Daniel. Good morning, sir. And we've got Jazz. Good morning. Thank you, Jazz. Let's get into this. Darren Elkins. Darren the Damage Elkins taking on Tristan Connelly. Now, I posted a picture of Connelly at weigh-ins for his last fight. You noticed yesterday that he came in wearing the sunglasses. Looked like he really had to work to get to 146 pounds. Darren Elkins, minus 180, could have been had for in the minus 130s earlier in the week. These fighters, in some ways, are mirror images of each other, except Connelly hasn't competed at the same level as Darren Elkins. Darren Elkins, there's only 1 year age difference. Tristan Connelly is a 14-7 fighter. You watch Tristan Connelly and everybody, well, not everybody. There are some folks who have been mentioning his victory over Pereira, and look at what happened in that fight. He was being ragdolled, thrashed. Pereira was making a fool of Tristan Connelly at many times during their fight, and then he just gassed himself out to a point where he couldn't even compete, and Connelly was toying with basically a grappling dummy on the mat. And Darren Elkins in this spot, it's interesting. You listen to Tristan Connelly's interviews, and he talks about sticking and moving, having a game plan where he wants to point fight with Darren Elkins and cruise his way to a decision victory. I don't think that's going to happen. I think this fight is going to get ugly. I don't think that Connelly poses a threat to Darren Elkins' chin. I believe we have a comment here. Yeah, I don't think Connelly has the power to cause Darren Elkins some big problems on the feet. I think that these guys are going to end up grappling here. And I go back to a fight that I saw in person, Dennis Bermudez against Darren Elkins. And that fight took place on Long Island. You had Bermudez, who was coming in as a significant favorite, and Elkins, you saw the control, his wrestling, his back-taking ability, and the way he's able to ride out opponents. I see that happening here. I think this fight's going to get very ugly, and Elkins, in my eye, is a rightful favorite here and should win this fight. I don't think that Connelly is necessarily UFC level. And the Sabatini fight, you saw Connelly came out slow as molasses, and Elkins is slow and plodding. And you look at the Cub Swanson fight, and the guy, I think he's talked about this in the past, that he has a speech impediment and that that he also has taken a ton of damage. Let's be honest. So all that stuff is baked into this line. I'll be picking Darren Elkins to win, and I'm interested to see where Connelly goes from here, because he cuts a ton of weight to get down to 146 pounds. This is the second time he's done it in the past year, and he's coming off of that neck surgery. So give me Elkins. Next up, where we have Grant-Dawson taking on Jared Gordon. Interesting spot here, plus 155 for Jared Gordon. Grant-Dawson minus 195 at the betting window. Grant-Dawson, it made the move to American Top Team, which says a lot that you're able to leave your comfort zone. and James Krause, they've been a great duo together for, I think he said 8 years in an interview that I listened to. And Dawson has the power wrestling to maintain top position here for significant stints of time. Jared Gordon, though, very dangerous off of his back, and he is the better striker in this matchup. Jared Gordon, though, what I've noticed through the years, and he's won us some money through the years. The Joaquim Silva fight, though, comes back to haunt me. Jared Gordon fights at one speed, and he goes that speed the entirety of the bout. And against Grant Dawson, I think you're going to need a little bit more versatility in your game to sweep Grant Dawson. And the one thing when I was listening to the interviews, Grant Dawson, really, he was offended that third round against Ricky Glenn. He wants to right a wrong. He knows that he came out too hot against Ricky Glenn and ran out of gas in the third round. He wants to come out and prove a point, make it known that he can fight 3 hard rounds. Gordon is live for a submission. It wouldn't shock me if Gordon locks up a submission here. But Dawson, I think he's going to be in top position for extended periods of time and should be winning this fight throughout most of the bout. So I'll be picking Grant Dawson in this spot. And this is another case where Dawson could have been had in the minus 140s for a while, and now the odds are starting to balloon out. So give me Grant Dawson to win. Next up, where we have Andre Touchy-Fili taking on Joanderson Brito. Brito coming in as a plus 180 underdog. And Andre Fili, this line has closed to a point where he's sitting at minus 220 now. Interesting spot here. Brito is fighting an opponent who is very similar to Andre Fili, except Fili is, in my eyes, much better than Bill Algeo. Has more tools at his disposal, the heavier hitter, and more battle tested. Brito is a marauder who will. It's interesting how he fights. He fights very similar to Alex Oliveira in that he'll empty his tank, but then he leaves a little bit left at the end of the rounds. I listened to his interviews, and he seems like he's going to come in with a grappling heavy game plan, try to put Fili on his back and lock up a submission. I think that's going to take a lot out of Brito. Brito also will exchange in the pocket with heavy hooks, as we saw on the Contender Series. Brito is live for a finish victory. Fili, you watch his matchup against Pineda, that was 10 months ago, is looking to get back in there, and now he's got another UFC contract here. Both of these guys fighting out of, Andre Fili and Elkins fighting out of Team Alpha Male. I like what they're doing over there, and Fili's really grown on me throughout the years. I've watched his game develop, and he is he's a fighter who, when the going gets tough, he will fight hard for your money. I'll be picking Andre Fili, and I also am concerned that this fight may not go the distance. I think that we are going to see a finish here, and the fight doesn't go the distance prop is sitting at plus money, which is a little bit surprising in this spot. I think that Fili has a point to prove, and that these two are going to get into it early and right off the bat. And Brito's going to have to work. If he puts Fili on his back, he's going to have to work to hold him there. I think that the second and third rounds for Fili are going to be where he turns it up, if he's still there, if both of these fighters are still there. But this fight has the potential to end early as well. So give me Andre Fili in that matchup. Now, we've got Jake Collier taking on Andre Arlovski. Arlovski, 43 years old, minus 135 betting favorite. Arlovski, we know exactly what he brings to the table. He has this ability to lure his opponents into fighting his game plan, and it's happened time and time and time again. It's one of those things where it's almost like he's hypnotizing his opponents, and they respect him too much. Jake Collier, you watch his pre-fight interviews here, and he says that he's not going to fall for that. He's going to crowd Andrei Arlovski and force a firefight. This is a fight too that you look at the odds, and it suggests that this fight is going to go to a decision. But it would not surprise me to see Jay Collier win this fight inside the distance. And 265 he came in for this matchup. Very don't let the looks fool you. He is fleet of foot and will fight hard for your money. He can go 3 hard rounds. He also, Jay Collier, has a reach advantage in this spot, which was surprising for me to see. Can fight at range. Now, the thing about Collier is he can be his own worst enemy. He has fallen apart when things don't go his way. His body language can come back to haunt him. You watch the Carlos Felipe bout, and there have been others where it almost looks like he feels sorry for himself out there and doesn't want to be there at times, but seems super motivated for this one. The Chase Sherman, destruction of Chase Sherman really seems to have lit a fire under his ass. And I have to go out of my way to fade Andrei Arlovski at this stage in his career against a heavyweight who can crack. And as long as he fights to a winnable game plan, we saw Chris Wade against Lance Palmer a couple of days ago. Lance Palmer fought a kickboxing fight and did not give himself the best chance to win. And now, is Collier going to come in here and give himself the best chance to win? That means putting himself into the fire. You have to be willing to go into the fire and be willing to win. If you don't do that, you're going to sit at range and get picked apart by Andrei Arlovski for the better part of 3 rounds. And that is that's a losing proposition to do that. So get in the fire with Arlovski and you can win this fight, Jay Collier. I'll be picking Collier to win, by the way. Let's go. Now, main event of the evening. Main event of the evening, where we have Marlon Vera taking on Rob Font. By the way, someone, DX says Jake's not just a fat middleweight. He's a real big boy. Dude sized up well against Arlovski. He did, yes. So main event of the evening, we have Rob Font. This line starting to close. Actually, I believe saw Vera now at plus 100, plus 105. Rob Font missed weight, atypical of Rob Font. Usually is making weight. Very concerning to see that. He went 5 hard rounds with Jose Aldo, where I was on Rob Font in that fight, and he was winning rounds until he lost them. He was absorbing heavy strikes, and the thing about Jose Aldo was he was being economical with his energy and only using it when he had to. Marlon Vera is going to come in here and probably lose the first round. That's probably going to happen at a high clip. And then he will turn it on. And how is Rob Font going to handle the leg kicks of Marlon Vera? That is a question I have, especially in the smaller octagon and the clinch game of Marlon Vera. And also, Marlon Vera has a deceptively good ground game. So 3 things, the trifecta that Rob Font is going to have to worry about. Now, Rob Font has a reach advantage here, has that jab that he can stick, one of the best jabs in mixed martial arts. I come back to this weight cut and how much of a factor it is. We saw Rob Font. We haven't heard from him what the cause of this was. Gave up on the cut early, too. It's not like he was the last fighter to the scale and missed weight. So I'm leaning to Marlon Cheeto Vera to win this fight and for the tide to turn somewhere around the midway point of the second round, where Vera takes this fight over and starts to hurt Rob Font with leg kicks, He's going to have to watch out for those straight punches coming down the pike, because that's what Rob Font does best. He's a great striker, and he has good pace, good cardio for 5 rounds. But I'm concerned. I have deep concerns about not only this weight cut, but also the quick turnaround for Rob Font, and also the motivation for this fight to come back. And you were on the precipice of fighting for a championship after the win over Cody Garbrandt, and then taking a lot of damage. He took a lot of damage in that fight against Jose Aldo. So quick turnaround. Marlon Chito Vera, we saw, was not hurt whatsoever against Frankie Edgar. In fact, took that fight over, and it was just a matter of time. Was hurting Frankie. My heart goes out to Frankie Edgar. By the way, we need to see Frankie in there. We need to see him back in there against a number of upper tier bantamweights, or even I'd like to propose a matchup for Frankie Edgar. How about Ilya Topuria? If he would take that fight, that would put some fannies in the seats. So in this spot, I'll be picking Marlon Chito Vera. I think that he has a not necessarily. This is a situation where the better fighter doesn't necessarily always win. I think that Vera has more in the tank, that he is willing to dig a little bit deeper, and has great cardio, made weight, and he's dangerous with those elbows in the clinch. He also is the more well-rounded fighter in this spot. Rob Font is a great fighter, up top tier bantamweight as well. So this is a moment where Marlon Vera has a chance to capitalize, and I'll be picking Marlon Chito Vera to win. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today and choosing to listen to this morning breakdown show. We are third-party tracked, long-term third-party track winners here. So make sure that you are taking advice from folks who are in the green, especially long-term, and the transparency is key. So thank you for tuning in. Go get what's yours, my friends, and cheers. Remember, early start time today, so let's go get what's ours.